while dealing with and being commended for stopping the Block Books, also known by the humans as the Black Books, and stopping their rule of piracy, corruption, extortion, and murder. The universe had to come to terms with the fact that humans were around and they didn't seem to be going anywhere. Of course, most societies actually liked having the humans around. If you hired humans for security, they were brutal but efficient, being able to find all the hidden compartments, being able to stop all the trafficking, being able to stop all those from bringing pain to those innocents. It seemed as though whenever there was an attempted robbery in one of these collection areas where there were stores, the human security, even if unarmed, would throw themselves at the danger, completely disrupting their plans and in many cases ending those who tried to injure the innocent. Also, those that tried to take from the innocent that which can never be taken back. Human laborers turned out to be incredibly efficient and surprisingly quick, even given their size. Not only were they strong and fast, but it seemed as though they were able to stack things in cargo holds in ways that no one even considered. As though the humans with just two eyes could actually figure out different ways of stacking everything. Ways that allowed them to cram in 20, 30, sometimes 40% more cargo into a ship, making sure that more and more was moved. This was insane. Many of the laborers liked having a human on because they thought it would be a little relaxing. The human could do most of the work and they could just take their time. Human engineers were always solving all the long-lasting issues that seemed to cause all the problems. In many cases, they would look at one of the engines and go, "Oh, why don't you just," usually followed by some sort of epiphany where everyone just collectively slapped themselves next to their brain and then couldn't believe they didn't figure it beforehand. Many of the humans were very humble about this, and they simply said, "fresh eyes." This no one understood until they said "fresh perspective." Then everyone understood. The translator was having a little bit of trouble on this, yet it seemed as though the engineers would simply show up on a new ship. It wouldn't matter if this was fresh off the line, but if there was a human engineer on it, they would begin to alter the ship. On many occasions, they'd be working on the engines, and everyone would lurch forward, realizing that they had just jumped from whatever FTL speed they were. Say they were at 2.5 FTL. Now they were at 7.1 FTL. It was absolutely insane how much they would increase things. Not only that, but they would increase the ability to have food. Looking at the food fabricators, it wasn't difficult for the humans to adjust them so that they were far more efficient. This would allow more food in everyone's belly and allow morale to jump up very, very quickly. Along with that, it seemed like human engineers were taking some sort of cue off everybody else's ship, because slowly you could see that the human ships, even though when they first showed up, seemed to be nothing more than flying bricks with a gravimetric engine buried in it, were getting more sleek, more aesthetically pleasing, yet they were still simply flying bricks. No huge fanfare on them, no long stabilizers, nothing of that sort. They were still flying bricks, but they seemed to be more almost aerodynamic. And who in the hell needs aerodynamics in the vacuum of space? Human business owners, once they were able to get their own franchise, were very strict on their contracts and always willing to make sure that they were able to get their product out on time or if not early. Many times they were surprised that it wasn't normal to receive what they called a bonus or a tip. This was confusing everybody, as whatever was on the contract was the contract, what you were getting paid. Yet the humans always seemed to throw this aside and say, as they put it, "oh well," and then continue on. They would still be very quick when it came to creating their products, even though they were very strict with the employees. The employees always wanted to work with the humans because the humans would always give them time, extra time to take care of whatever personal matters. For several species, like the young duck, who usually doesn't have a chance to see their own children, as they're expected to work almost every single hour of every single day, having time to see their children, to help them grow, to watch them grow, was such a big deal that every single one of them, even if they had to work their talons apart, they would simply do so because they had time. Not only that, but the humans paid surprisingly well. On the other side, there was something that was absolute scum and villainy: human lawyers. No one, and absolutely no one, liked dealing with a human lawyer, as they would talk themselves into and out of situations before you even realized what was going on. They could manipulate the way you looked at things, made it seem like you were in the wrong and that you owed them something instead. It was absolutely confusing, and it was pure evil, and no one liked human lawyers. Yet, when you ask a human about these lawyers, the humans would simply say, yeah, they're evil, but unfortunately, they're a necessary evil. Many did not agree with this at first until they realized that they could simply hire a human lawyer as well, and these human lawyers would do everything they could to tear apart the adversary. This led everything almost into a deadlock for a while until everyone realized that this was like a WMD, only to be used in certain circumstances. Human farmers and ranchers that ended up on agricultural worlds would produce exceptionally high yields, yields well beyond what was expected. They would also spend every single day that they had working on said fields, making sure their equipment was functional to work on said fields, would never take a day off. This was even more so for the ranchers, as they would also produce faster growing animals and also much fatter animals. All the carnivores around the known universe loved this, as any fatty meat was always something to look forward to. Not to mention, the humans brought in this strange animal they called a pig. This animal, when cared for correctly, would produce very high quality and fatty meats, especially certain areas known as jowls. This was something that, again, all of the carnivorous races wanted a piece of. Hell, they wanted the whole damn thing. And this meant that human pig, what they call pork, sold for a very high price. This also led for many farmers exclusively raising them, usually right next to those ranchers that were producing the food for these pigs. This was an odd way of looking at it, but then again, it also stood to reason that if they were producing so much, they would need more help, which meant they hired a whole lot. And in many cases, the humans did something that no one expected. They called the help and said, bring your families down, man. The more the merrier. And this allowed many of the young to actually learn how to raise these animals from a very young age, and they began the process of becoming farmers or ranchers themselves. This actually made the humans do something that creeped most of us out. They bared their teeth. In their culture, it was something commonplace, something of joy, yet for everyone else, this was a sign of aggression. It unfortunately made some of the little ones shake, and then the human would simply raise their manipulator to their face and go, oh, sorry about that. No one would hold it against them on this, especially since the fact that it's hard to be mad when your belly's full. Human transports were absolutely feared amongst all. Everyone believed that their simple transport ships were actually battleships in disguise. The transport ships were, of course, known as a Q ship. The humans would still laugh every time it was called this, but no one understood why. They were still feared, and no one ever faced off or tried to pirate a convoy with a human ship inside. Even one was enough to scare them away. Yet they also seemed to carry far more than they should. Once again, the human laborers were able to somehow stuff even more supplies, more cargo into the hull, and this astounded everyone. This astounded them to the point that they actually looked at humans as almost magic in some cases. For those that live on space stations, a human ship rolling in was something everyone wanted to be around for, because even though this thing was packed so tight, that when they opened up the cargo doors, you could just see rows and rows and rows of packed in crates. The humans were also very efficient on getting it out. This allowed them to actually order more items, more luxury items. And with luxury items meant that they wanted to share the joy, which meant the human crews would hang around for even more. This would lead to many occasions where the humans would share their own luxury items with those on the stations. Luxury items that could not be found anywhere else outside of human space, and this again brought them even closer. Along with that, many of the station crews would want to have a human on board because, again, they were very efficient, very strong, and very quick for their size. On board many of the ships were something called a human tourist, those that just wanted to see the wider galaxy. Most were polite, though they had difficulty with a translator and understanding the jargon. They were also very, very inquisitive, wanting to see certain sights. Some of them wanted to research the more religious aspects of different society. Others wanted to see technology. Others wanted to see history. It was always different, yet there was a huge boom in this industry. And because of the human tourists and their ability to simply go out and purchase things, this allowed the economy to once again flourish. Around all the known universe, the economy seemed to flourish as much as possible. The stock markets everywhere were going through the roof. Everyone loved it. At least, it seemed that way. You see, many employers would see the human efficiency and they would simply hire humans and cut the rest of their workers or transfer the workers to different areas that were not so nice to work at. Many of these were very dangerous. This will allow the business to expand vastly as the humans seem to be much faster. And they would then start to say, well, if we can do this with one or two humans, what happens if we only hire human employees? What if we make this exclusively human? Human employees were so highly prized after just a few years that they could almost set their own wage. Setting out your own version of an application onto the galactic net, you would simply be picked up very, very quickly. It was very interesting to see the bidding war that would happen just for a single human employee. Yet it always seemed worth it to the employer. With the human strength, speed, knowledge, dexterity, their ability to think in ways that the rest of the universe just didn't, this led them again to be very, very highly prized, at least among space stations and colonies and stuff like that. Most of the homeworlds restricted the amount of humans that they allowed, even tourists, though with the number of humans in total only around 12 billion, which was about maybe a tenth, maybe an eighth of the galactic standard to everyone else. This suited everyone fine, and the humans were not bothered by these restrictions at all. In fact, some people believed that there would be human smuggling because of the restrictions, but since there just wasn't enough humans, and there's always careers for them if they wanted, there just wasn't enough humans for smuggling. Not to mention, any type of smuggling of personnel, what the humans call trafficking, was very much stopped. It seemed as though humans had this strange affliction against any type of trafficking, meaning that this really was a non-issue. The issue, though, was with the humans in royal homes or castles or state houses, things of that nature. After a certain amount of time, humans seemed to get more and more attracted to those they guarded. This was strange, and everyone figured it was just a biological quirk of humans. Yet the younger members, once they found this out, especially the royal family, would always try to tease the guards. This, they believed, was easy because they had found out that humans are very visually stimulated, and since most species either wear almost nothing or don't wear clothing at all, these young ones would always come up and try to display themselves in one way or another. However, it was very difficult and in some cases frustrating for these young ones, as every single one of these guards stayed very professional. and it was difficult to gauge reactions with a face of stone, especially from the human guards, because they wear clothing. They couldn't see a physical biological reaction. Even with all the small things that were being a bit of a bother, but nothing that would be devastating, the wealth was absolutely pouring into all the species. The flood of humans, though, did it make it a little difficult for others to maintain their careers, and this slowly begins to show. It wasn't sudden at all, but as humans spread out more and more, you could find demonstrations and sometimes violence, though it was rare. But they did happen. They didn't want the humans around, and the humans would always be around when there was any type of act of vandalism. And, well, humans don't seem to like that, especially if you, as they say, damage their favorite watering hole, whatever that meant. The tipping point was the sudden arrival of several million humans that finished up their training and education and arrived to take some sort of employment. Though by galactic standards this was a really small number, all employers jumped at the chance to have an employee that was human. And unfortunately, this coincided with a whole bunch of other personnel finishing their education, and it stifled their opportunity for getting immediate employment. This made many of the locals a bit agitated, to say the least. This is when the phrase, "damn humans," began to be noticed. It was written on the side of some buildings sometimes, a lot of times it was yelled, and humans believe it was some sort of jealousy, as that's all they heard. Damn humans. And, of course, the poor spelling didn't help, but the reality on the ground was actually quite different. As it turned out, the block books led the charge, chanting this phrase, making the humans believe it was just a small, angry mob, those that they had stopped from cheating everybody, and they wanted some sort of revenge. Even if that revenge was simply by stating someone is bad and trying to get other people to look at them sideways and not treat them very well. Yet, to their surprise, this gained momentum rather quickly as far as galactic standards are concerned. And the meaning was revealed to the humans as a set of politicians would constantly put legislation in place to stop the humans from entering their territory, eventually blocking any more humans from entering the known universe. This, of course, angered the human governments, who began to pull together for the first time just to allow these restrictions to be released, allow the humans to travel a little bit, look out for some sort of work, anything. But they were adamant about this. Those that were not human didn't want things to change, and everyone finally realized what damn humans actually meant when one of the royalty stood up and gave the speech. "We must stop the flood of humans from destroying us from within. They take our best positions and force their own will over all other species. Our young now emulate the humans and reject our culture, our traditions. Even now, every family is receiving hardships from the lack of advancement in their position due to human interference. Also, every single family, non-human, has offsprings that are speaking and presenting themselves, even walking more and more human. This cannot be allowed to continue. To save ourselves and preserve our people, our way of life, our faith, our offspring, our culture, then it is imperative that we stem the flood of these humans and perform our duty by doing one thing: damn the humans." Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you so much for joining me on today's chapter. Before I go, I gotta send out a giant thank you to one of my supporters, and that would be Chris Dixon. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax, ejecting.